3.4 notes are all about the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is a formula that we can use whenever something doesn't factor. This is how we can get our solution. So we can actually use the quadratic formula for anything, but obviously if it does factor, we would want to just factor it because that would be the easiest option. But if it doesn't factor, we can use the quadratic formula. So that is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And a, b, and c come from the coefficients in front of the x squared, the x, and the constants. And then before we find our a, b, and c, it always has to be equal to 0 before we start. All right, so example 1. We're going to solve using the quadratic formula. So our quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2 times a. What do you think I have to do first before I find my a, b, and c? I have to make it equal to 0. So I'm going to move that 5 over to the left side by subtracting 5 on both sides. So it'll cancel out on the right. So I have x squared plus 3x minus 5 is equal to 0. Now that it's equal to 0, I have my a, b, and c. What's my a? So it's the coefficient in front of the x squared, which would be what? 1. So a is 1, b is 3, and c is negative 5. So now we can plug everything in. So this would be negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 5 over 2 times a, which is 1. Bless you. And then from here we simplify. So we always want to simplify under the square root first. Be careful when simplifying. You still have to follow your order of operations. So that negative 3 and plus or minus stays the same. When I simplify under the square root, this is 9 minus 4 times 1 times negative 5 would be positive 20, so it would be plus 20. And then over 2. We can simplify this a little bit more by adding 9 and 20, so negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 29 over 2. And then we always want to check, can I simplify my square root? What are 2 factors of 29? Do we have any other than 1 and 29? Nope. So we can't simplify the square root, so we are done. So this would be our answer. All right, so on the next page, let's do number 2. What do I need to do first before I can plug everything into my formula? Make it equal to 0. So I'm going to add 7x to the other side. How would I write this in standard form? Perfect. 2x squared plus 7x plus 4. So you have to make sure you keep it in standard form and combine any like terms if you have them. Here we don't, so just got to write it in standard form. Our formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. What's my a? 2. What's my b? And what's my c? Perfect. So now we can just plug everything in. So this would be negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times 2 times 4 over 2 times 2. And then next we simplify. So negative 7 plus or minus, what is 7 squared? 49. And what is 4 times 2 times 4? Perfect. 4 times 2 would be 32, and 4 times 2 would be 8. And 8 times 4 would be 32. So this is minus 32 over 2 times 2, which is 4. And then the last step is I can simplify my square root a little bit more. So negative 7 plus or minus, what is... Any questions here? All right, example 2, we're doing the same thing. So I have to solve using the quadratic. What do I need to do first? Move it all to one side. So I'm going to subtract 12x and add 4. So how would I write my new left side? Do I have any terms that I can combine? So what's negative 8x minus 12x? Negative 20x plus 4 is equal to 0. So what's my A? What's my B? Negative 20. And what's my C? 4. So my formula is the square root, it's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now we plug everything in. So this would be negative 20 plus or minus the square root of negative 20 squared minus 4 times 25 times 4 over 2a, which is 2 times 25. I can do the 20 squared, but I also, what is negative 20? Positive 20. What's negative 20 squared? 400, awesome. And then here I have negative 4 times 25 times 4. So I can multiply just 2 at a time first. What's 4 times 25? 100. And 100 times 4? 400. So this would be minus 400 over, what's 2 times 25? 50. So this would be 20 plus or minus, what's 400 minus 400? 0. What is the square root of 0?
1.
Guess again. 0. So it would just go away. So it's 0, so it just goes away. And then it's over 50. And we don't need that plus or minus there anymore because it was plus or minus 0. So we can just get rid of that too. So now I'm just left with 20 over 50. Can I simplify this? What does it simplify to? 2 over 5. Awesome. And that's our answer. All right, now let's look at example 3. What should I do first? Make it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 13 to move it to the other side. So negative x squared plus 4x minus 13 is equal to 0. My quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So what's my a? Awesome, negative 1. What's my b? 4. What's my c? Negative 13. So once we identify our a, b, and c, we can plug everything in. So I have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times a times c, which would be negative 1 times negative 13 over 2a. So 2 times negative 1. All right, what can I do next? So what's 4 squared? 16. And then I can multiply 4 times negative 1 times negative 13. So 4 times negative 1 would be positive 4. And what's 4 times negative 13? Negative 52. Perfect. So it would be minus 52. And that is over negative 2. What is 16 minus 52? Negative 36. So negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 36 over negative 2. Can I simplify this anymore? Can I simplify the square root of negative 36? What does it simplify to? 6i. Because the negative comes out and turns into an I, and the square root of 36 is 6. So 6i. So this would be negative 4 plus or minus 6i over negative 2. Now, what do you think? Can I simplify this any more? Do all 3 of the numbers here have a greatest common factor? What would that be? 2. But even better, I can divide everything by negative 2 just to get rid of the denominator here. Because everything is divisible by 2, I can divide it all by negative 2, and that'll get rid of my denominator. So what's negative 4 divided by negative 2? 2. So plus or minus. Because it's a plus or minus, we don't really have to change the sign there. It would be like minus plus, but it's essentially the same thing. What's 6i divided by 2? 3i over, what's negative 2 divided by 2? Just 1. And if our denominator is 1, do I need to write it? Nope. So my answer would just be 2 plus or minus 3i. So chapter 3, section 4, part 2. So part 2 talks about the discriminant. So the discriminant we can find by using the quadratic formula, but it's just everything that's under the square root. So our formula for the discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. That's all we care about, not the whole quadratic, just the part that's under the square root. We can analyze the discriminant of a quadratic equation to determine the number and the type of solutions of the equation. So if our discriminant is positive, this says it's greater than 0. So if it's a positive number, that means I have 2 real solutions. If our discriminant is equal to 0, then I have 1 real solution. And if our discriminant is negative, then that means I have 2 imaginary solutions. Because if you think about it, we are taking the formula that's under the square root, so that b squared minus 4ac. If that b squared minus 4ac is negative, then that means I have an I, so that means it's imaginary. So if I end up with an I, that means I have 2 imaginary solutions. So let's do some examples. We've defined the discriminant and described the number and type of solutions of each equation. So our discriminant formula is just b squared minus 4ac. And just like when we were solving quadratics using the quadratic formula, it has to be equal to 0 before we plug in our a, b, and c. So for a, what's my a? 1. What's my b? Negative 6. And what's my c? 10. So when I plug it into my discriminant formula, I have negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 10. What's negative 6 squared? 36. 4 times 1 times 10 would be 40. So 36 minus 40 would be what? Negative 4. So my discriminant is negative 4. What does that tell me about the type of solutions that I have? That they are imaginary. So I have 2 imaginary solutions. All right, let's look at B. So what's my A? 1. What's my B? Negative 6. And what's my C? 9. So I'm going to plug that in. I have B squared, so that would be negative 6 squared minus 4 times A times C, so times 1 times 9. What's negative 6 squared? 36. What is 4 times 1 times 9? 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 9? 36. And what's 36 minus 36? 0. What did we say if our discriminant is 0? How many solutions do we have? 1 real solution. Right, and then for C, what's my A? 1. What's my B? Negative 6. And what's my C? 8. So let's plug it in. I have negative 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 8. What's negative 6 squared? 36. What is 4 times 1 times 8? Negative 32. So 36 minus 32 is 4. So my discriminant is 4. What do we know if we have a positive discriminant? 2 real solutions. All right, we're going to do a couple more to practice. So let's do number 11. What do I need to do first? Make it equal to 0. So I'm going to add 9 to move it to the other side. So what's my new equation? Awesome. 4x squared plus 6x plus 9 is equal to 0. So make sure you keep it in standard form. To find the discriminant, my formula, again, is b squared minus 4ac. What's my a? 4. What's my b? 6. And what's my c? 9. So let's plug everything in. I have 6 squared minus 4 times a, which is 4 times 9. What's 6 squared? 36. And I have 4 times 4 times 9. So let's just start with 4 times 4, which is what? 16. And 16 times 9? 144. Perfect. And then what's 36 minus 144? 108? Negative 108. So my discriminant is negative 108. If it's negative, what does that tell me about the number and type of solutions that I have? 2 imaginary. All right, let's do one more. Number 12. What should I do first? Make it equal to 0. So how can I do that? Subtract 6 and add 10x. All right, now how would I rewrite the left side? Awesome. Negative 5x squared plus 10x minus 5. So make sure you combine like terms and keep it in standard form. So my only like terms were 1 and -6, so that's how I got the -5. So what's my A? What's my B? 10, and what's my C? -5. So let's plug everything in. What's my formula?
10 squared minus 4 minus 5 minus 5.
So 10 squared minus 4 times -5 times -5. So what's 10 squared? 100. And then I have -4 times -5, which would be +20. And what's 20 times -5? -100. And 100 minus 100? 0. So when my discriminant is 0, what does that tell me about the number and type of solutions I have? One real solution.